Okay, everyone, we are here with another component of a language, and that is morphology. And morphology refers for the study of word and word structure. So, in other words, we can say that morphology is the word science in a language. So, we are referring it is as a science because there are some specific knowledge for structuring the word in a language. So this particular section or this particular class will explore the word science in a language. It will help you to understand how the component morphology works in a language, how morphology studies the word and word structure in there. And this is Mohammad Nasim Firdaus, and I will be here to narrate this particular PowerPoint presentation, and I believe you all will be here till the last slide of this presentation. And I also would like to add this information that all the information here were gathered and prepared by me, and the information were taken from George Yule, Peter Roach, Charles Mayer, and other various sources. So I would like to welcome you to this particular PowerPoint narration. So let's see what are the contents for today's presentation and narration. So here are the contents. First we will be looking at morphology, and then we'll be trying to identify morpheme and its classification, and then we'll go through free morpheme, lexical and functional, and then bound morpheme, inflection and derivational morpheme, and then we'll go the differences between inflectional and derivational morpheme, the differences between inflection and derivational morpheme. So that's our plan for this particular narration. Let's start with the first one, morphology. Morphology. We just started this narration by saying that it is a study of word and word structure, and by saying word and word structure, it is actually forms. So by referring morphology, we are focusing on the study of forms that analyzes the morphemes in a language. So we are trying to analyze the morphemes in a language. And morphology is the study of a structure of words. So if you just closely look at this particular slide, you will find lots of words, some sentences in there. For example, this is a particular word, and we can easily say that here we have two different things. One is morph and another is ology. So primarily ology was used in scientific description, for example in biology. So ology refers the science of, ology is the science of, and morph is the word and word structure. So it's all about the word and word structure. So how will we look at the word and word structure? It will be based mostly on the parts of words, how words come together to make a new word, how the rules of morphemes come together to make a morphological unit, to have a word unit in a language. That will be the prime focus. So when we will be studying morphology, so it will be studying the rules of morphology, focus on how words and the parts of words actually are structured. So here, if you look closely, as you have seen in here, morph and ology, we have this kind of segments in other words as well. So we'll be looking at that. So that's why we need to understand the basic unit of morphology, and that is morphemes. So what is morpheme? Morpheme is a minimal unit of meaning or grammatical function. So in order to be a morpheme, we needed two conditions. Condition number one, we have three conditions. So number one, we have that it should be a minimal one, and number two, it could be the grammatical meaning, it should have meaning, or it could have grammatical function. So mainly we have two conditions. Condition number one, definitely it should be minimal unit, and condition number two, either it could be meaning, representing meaning, or either it could be grammatical function. Okay, either it should show the meaning or it should show the grammatical function. Sometimes there might be some morphemes which can show both of them, but they are very rare. So either they have to have the meaning or the grammatical function. So meaning, we are very clear about the meaning, but what is grammatical function we are referring here? Let's see these two words, as we are referring and study of word and word structure. So definitely we are going through this word and word structure in here. So we can see here different sizes in there. So what is there? We find re, and then open, and then ed. So three sections in here: re, open, and ed. We are very clear about this open. That means open is giving us the meaning, so that's why it is a morpheme. Even in here, re, we can say that it also gives us meaning, but it has grammatical function as well. Re gives us meaning. For example, if you say repeat or recede or reduce or reintroduce, you can see that whenever we are trying to repeating something, we are referring that something is going over and over again, then we are referring or using re as the option to make it happen. So that's how we can say that re has a meaning. But look at the last section, ed. So we know that whenever we are referring as open and open, we are referring something which happened before. By adding ed after open, we are referring something which happened before. That means which happened, maybe the door was opened before, not now. So we are referring the previous tense, and that comes to the grammatical item tense. So it is referring grammatical function. In here, ed refers grammatical function, and that's how it is a morpheme, because it refers grammatical function. And the first condition referring as minimal unit. So what is minimal unit you are referring? For example, we have this particular word open. So we are referring it as open because if you have segment of this particular word open or morphological unit open, we can separate it like op plus en or o plus pen. But whenever you can separate these things, then there will the meaning will be changed. It will not be existing the base meaning. For example, the way the meaning we will have in open, it might not be same when we will referring as o or pen. It will have different meaning. So that's why we are saying that it actually hamper our minimal set. So it will breach the first condition. That's why we cannot do this. And I should add this kind of example in there in my physical class. Some of my students ask this, so that's why I would like to produce this in this virtual class as well. For example, football. So we know that we have two different words in the word football. So can we use it as two morphemes, foot and ball? In this word, we cannot. We cannot say there is two morphemes in here. We cannot say that, because football refers a particular object which has a round shape. But when we are referring foot and ball in two different words, it actually changes its base meaning. Foot refers one thing and ball refers another thing. So we cannot separate this particular word into different morphemes. Rather, we should say that this is a single morpheme. There is only one morpheme in this particular morphological unit. So that's what we are referring. At the same, if you look at in this particular word tourist, you have tourist and s. Whenever you are referring tourist, you are referring only one person, that means singular. But whenever we are adding s after tourist, then we are referring a plural situation. So that means there are more than one tourist. So that's how it is referring as grammatical function as well. So as this is grammatical function, so that's why we are referring it as morpheme. Now another question should raise in your mind, that if we refer s, doesn't that breach the first condition, minimal unit? Yes, if you separate this in completely different situation, if you just put s, then it will be breaching the minimal unit. But you should take it in your mind that we are adding s after tourist. So that is another way of understanding that whether we what are the classification we are making from the part of morphemes. So definitely we'll be looking at that. But in this particular slide, you need to take two major information from this slide. Number one, in order to being a morpheme, the morphological unit should be a minimal one, minimal unit. By referring minimal, we are referring the particular word should be only one, and if we separate this particular morphological unit, that will not carry the base meaning, that will have different meaning like foot and ball or o and pen. So we cannot separate this. So it should be the minimal unit of a morphological form. And second condition is that either it should produce meaning or it should produce or depict grammatical function in order to be a morpheme. So whenever these two things will come together, only then we can say that is a morpheme or not. So in this particular two words, we can say that in the first word we have three morphemes, re, open and ed. And in the second word we have two different morphemes, tourist and is, tourist. So these two morphemes are there in this one. But you need to refer that a morpheme cannot be divided without altering or destroying its meaning. That's what we are referring as a minimal unit. That's why we are saying that we cannot alter or destroy its meaning. We cannot say o and pen by altering the meaning of open. Okay, so next slide. So previous slide I took a lot of time in there because that was the mother slide for all the slides to come in this particular presentation narration. So here is the classification of morpheme. That's what we are referring when we are referring as morpheme and its classification. First we are referring morpheme in two basic function, and that is free morpheme and bound morpheme. After that, free morpheme is separated in two more morphemes, and that is lexical and functional. And bound morpheme is separated in derivational and inflectional. So we will be talking all these morphemes in this particular slide. So get ready. So first one, we are referring free morpheme. What is free morpheme? Actually, when you are referring free morpheme, we can easily understand free morpheme by referring this thing is free. Free means it is independent, so it doesn't depend with other things, it can stand alone. So the morphemes that can stand by themselves as single words is referred as free morphemes. So look at here in this particular words. In other way, we can say that these are basic morphological unit, and it doesn't need other morphological unit to help it to give a particular purpose of meaning or purpose of grammatical function. It can say by itself. It is by saying close or by saying end, it refers as the free morpheme because it stands by itself. And this set is referred as separate English word forms like nouns, adjectives, verbs. You know the passive species, so the nouns can be the free morphemes, the adjectives can be the free morphemes, the verbs can be the free morphemes, and of course some other like preposition conjunction that will be referred as free morphemes as well. So but this set is separated in two different sections, lexical and functional. So first one, lexical free morpheme. Lexical free morpheme is a set of ordinary nouns, adjectives and verbs and that carry the content of the message. For example, if I say Karim wants to play football, rather than saying Karim wants to play football, if I produce only this one, Karim wants play football, like nouns, adjectives and verbs in there. So in here we are referring only the nouns and verbs. It will give you a proper meaning. What do you want to refer? So in a particular sentence, and usually nouns, adjectives and verbs, they are the content of the messages, so they carry the content of a message. So that's why we are referring as lexical free morpheme. For example, in here, girl, said, work, these particular words carry the content of a message. For example, rather than saying the said girl works on the road, so we can say that girl said walk road, so we can understand that what can be referred, or what is the meaning of that particular one. And these morphological units or morphemes are referred as lexical free morphemes. I want to disclose one particular thing that might confuse you, that is why we are saying it as morphemes rather than words. We can say that all morphemes cannot be words. All morphemes cannot be words. Similarly, all words doesn't reflect only one morpheme. There could be some other morpheme. For example, girls, girls. So this is a word, but in this particular word we have two different morphemes in here. So we cannot say all morphemes are words, and in the other words we cannot say all words give us only one morpheme. So that's why we need to separate this one. So this is another thing that it seems very close. It seems almost same, that girl and girl is at exactly the same morpheme and the word as well. But as we are studying, we are analyzing the word and word structure. So that's why we need to produce from the basic unit, and that is morpheme. And the next one is functional free morpheme. Functional free morpheme refers the functions. For example, but, on, the, day. We cannot show people about these things. But, on, the, day, they are only produced in a linguistic situation. For example, in the sentences. So their presence is in the sentences, conjunctions, prepositions, articles and pronouns. They are the functional free morpheme because rather than meaning, they are having the functions. Though we know the meaning, but you cannot represent it in a real life situation. You cannot show me what is but, what is on, what is the. Rather, you need these particular words in a sentence to define the meaning of the other words, and there's application in a sentence. So that's why we are referring these as functional free morpheme. Now let's go to the next one, and that is bound morpheme. And bound morpheme is just opposite of free morpheme, because bound morpheme cannot normally stand alone and are typically attached to another form. So rather than form, we can say that another morphological unit. For example, in this particular words, quickly, worked and boys. Quickly, the word quickly has two different morphemes, quick and ly, worked, walk and ed, and boy, boy and s. So in this particular words, ly, ed and s cannot stand separately. If you produce only ly, it will not give you anything. But if you produce ly after quick, after slow, it will give you some another meaning. So we are referring bound morpheme which need another morphological unit to produce or to stay meaning or function in a particular word. So mostly the free morphemes are attached, the bound morphemes are attached with free morphemes, but sometimes some stems are there to produce. For example, receive, though some sources have different connotations. For example, in here, sieve is not a free morpheme, rather it is a stem. So don't go with the stem, we will be referring that other thing. And re is another one. Re refers the bound morpheme, and that is bound morpheme in here. So that's why we need bound morpheme to have free morpheme, but sometimes it is possible, so that's why it is referring as stem. So stem is another morphological unit. We cannot say it as a free morpheme, so it can be happen. Those there are some sources which refer that receive is only one morpheme, but that will create another confusion. If it is receive is only one morpheme, what will be re in the particular word receive? So we'll be stick with this particular source, is that CV is one kind of stem. Stem is one kind of morphological unit that doesn't give, that is not a morpheme. It is only we are referring it as a morphological unit. So inflectional bound morpheme, these are very important because we'll be having the differences between inflectional and derivational morphemes in there. So in order to have the differences, we need to closely identify what are inflectional bound morpheme and what are inflectional and derivational bound morphemes. So in order to have these, we need to have a very close look about this particular bound morphemes. Inflection bound morphemes refers which doesn't produce new words in the language. It only indicates grammatical function. For example, in the word goes, maybe boys, maybe numbers. So all these particular words you will find es and s, which indicates the number, person and time. For example, in this particular word goes, by referring goes, you can understand that we are talking about only one person. That's why we are referring goes. If that is more than one person, then we should use only go. We are referring only one person, and we are referring only the number is one, and that's why it is goes. If it is more than one, then we will be referring only go. And we are referring he and she, that means third person in there, and that's why we are referring goes. If it is I or you, we would be using go. And of course the time, we are using it in the present tense, so we are referring that the thing is happening in the present situation. That's why we are referring is goes. Rather, if it was happened in past, then we would be referring as went. Or if it is will be happening in the future, then we will be referring as will go. So definitely it would not be es. So only es, only this particular bound morpheme reflects this particular information, number, person and time. So that's why it is very much important. And inflections are one type of grammatical morpheme, a morpheme that indicates some kind of grammatical relationship. So what are things you need to stick in your mind is that inflectional bound morpheme refers the grammatical function, grammatical relationship. So this particular es joins the relationship with other words in a sentence. And we have here is the derivational inflectional bound morphemes. Some other informations like inflectional morphemes are used to show if a word is plural, singular, past tense or not, and it is a comparative or possessive form. In which has only 8 inflectional morphemes, so they are very few. So you can say that in here we are referring only 4 sentences, and in here we are referring all 8 inflectional morphemes in English language. The first one is the possessive one, then is the plural form, then is the we are saying is the tense form, and then the continuous form, and the past form, and then the participle form, past participle perfect form, sorry, not participle perfect form, and the superlative form, and the comparative form in there. So all 8 inflectional morphemes can be shown in only 4 sentences. So that's how we are referring as derivational bound morpheme. So now if we analyze this particular sentence, we will have Jim is 2. Okay, let me give you 3 span. Jim 1 morpheme, is 2 morphemes, 2 3 morphemes, sister 4 morphemes, is 5 morphemes, are 6 morphemes, real 7 morphemes, ly 8 morphemes, different 9 morphemes. So 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 morphemes in this particular sentence. And in here says is a bound morpheme, one bound morpheme, is two bound morphemes, ly three bound morphemes in here, and rest of them are free morphemes. Jim is a free morpheme, 2 is a free morpheme, sister is a free morpheme, r is a free morpheme, real is a free morpheme, and different is a free morpheme as well. So you cannot separate more than this. So as well you need to separate these morphemes in a sentence as well. So these are the lists by Mayer. Introducing English Linguistics International Student Edition, page 153. You will find this in there. So this list is here. You can see the functions in there: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 inflectional morphemes, and these are the ways. So you can pause it here and you can see in detail, or you can take a screenshot as well for your collection as well. So what is derivational bound morpheme? We have known the inflectional bound morpheme, so now it's time to look at the derivational bound morpheme. So you need to be very close. I will be extremely suggesting to going with the examples. So before we went with the example goes, now we are referring as slowly. So we are referring ly in slowly and es in goes. So es is the inflectional bound morpheme, which refers the grammatical function, and especially the time, percent, and other inflections we have seen in the previous slides. And in here in ly we are referring some different meaning. So derivational bound morphemes, which are used to make new words or to make words of a different grammatical category. For example, in here slow is an adjective, but we added ly and changed it into adverb, slowly. So that's how we are referring that it changes the particular parts of speech. It changes the meaning as well. So that's what is derivational bound morpheme, and it is a much larger class than inflection. Inflectional morpheme you see only 8 points, rather than derivational is a much larger class. And derivational morphemes can be either prefixes or suffixes. So what is prefixes and what is suffixes? It is very easy. Pre means before and suffix it, which will refer as after. So for example, we have seen this reopen. So we have reopen and ed. Re is a bound morpheme, ed is a bound morpheme. We have said so. So prefix we are referring re as prefix and ed as suffix. But I am not saying that ed is a derivational morpheme. Rather, I am saying that re is only a bound morpheme and ed is inflectional morpheme. So, but a derivational morpheme can be used both as prefix or as suffixes as well. For example, careless, care and less. So here we can see that less, this derivational morpheme uses after care as a suffix, and here in ly as well it also used as a suffix in the word slowly. So the differences between inflectional derivational morpheme, it looks very hazy, this particular slides, but I wanted to give you some concrete information for the differences between inflection and derivational. I believe that it will be very easy if you try to analyze the differences by focusing on the examples, goes and slowly. First one is meaning. Inflectional morpheme changes meaning, and derivational inflectional morpheme does not change meaning, but derivational morpheme changes meaning. And inflectional morpheme does not change the part of speech of a stem, that means the prime morphological unit. Rather, derivational morpheme changes the part of speech or stem. And the relationship between the inflectional morpheme, the syntactic or semantical relationship, is there any structural or meaning based relationship in there? So inflectional morpheme has a relationship between different words in a sentence, that's why we are saying that es in goes has a relationship with the noun, with the other grammar, other parts of speech of a sentence. But derivational morpheme has the relationship within the word, therefore that means ly has a relationship with slowly. So that's why it is saying that within the word. Existence occurs with all members of some large class of morphemes. All members of some large class of morphemes. So draw me a diagram. For example, this is inflectional morpheme. So we are hearing that all members of some large class of morphemes. So there are large class of morphemes in there. There are large class of morphemes in inflectional, and here you will have some other morphemes in this large class. So inflectional morpheme will not work with all those large class, rather it will maybe working with 1, 2, 3, and in this 3 it will work with all the morphemes inside. So that's why we are referring it as some large class of morphemes. But under derivational morpheme, it works with some members of a class of morphemes. Some members of a class of morphemes. Then that means not everyone in this particular morphological thing, but some members in this class of morphemes. So the place where we can find inflectional morpheme, it occurs at the margins of words, at the boundary line. You can say that at the margins of words we have inflectional morphemes. So for example, at the last part you will say, that's why it is morpheme. Occurs before any inflection suffixes are added. Inflectional suffixes, so they are added before any inflection, like carelessness could be the one or any other suffixes will be added before inflectional suffixes. So first there will be the base word, that means free morpheme, and then there will be derivation, and then there will be the inflection. And it is very relevant, inflection is very relevant to syntax, whereas derivation is not relevant with the syntax. Inflection and is obligatory. Obligatory means that it should be, it is mandatory, and whether derivation is optional. So that means you can do it or not, it's up to you. You can change it with another word. That's why we are referring is that inflected word forms cannot be replaced. So whenever you need to use ed, definitely you need to ed and es whenever it needs. But derived lexemes can be replaced with simple words. For example, slowly we can say in different we can use other words, or we can explain slowly. Okay, but we cannot explain, we cannot use explanatory phrases replacing es in goes. And then expression inflected word forms express the same concept as the base. That means go and goes have almost the same concept, but derivational express a new concept. Slow and slowly are the different concepts. Inflection categories express a relatively abstract meaning. Whenever we are referring goes, you need to make it understand rather than you can visualize. So that's why it is abstract. We cannot easily identify because it is a theme, it is an idea. While the derivational morphemes are relatively concrete. We are not saying that it is concrete as well. We are saying that relatively, comparatively, it is concrete. Semantically regular, that means inflected word forms are semantically regular. It is regular in terms of meaning. So almost you can see these things like ed for referring the past form of a verb, and s for after the nouns to refer the plural forms. So like this one, it is semantically regular. But derived lexemes can be semantically regular, can be semantically irregular. It can be semantically, so there is a possibility that it can be irregular. Relevancy, less relevant to the base, so it is very less relevant to the base. The form is not very related, but when we are referring as derivational, it is very relevant to the base, as the connection is very relevant. Application to the base can be applied without arbitrary limitations. Arbitrary means what is not fixed. So we can be applying inflectional morphemes where the limitations is not fixed. But whenever we are you are applying derivational morphemes, so it can be fixed. It can be fixed in a. It is very limited in an arbitrary way. And then the position of expression, that means at the periphery of words. Periphery, that means at the boundary of words. So we are referring the expression will be at the presence of inflection will be at the boundary of words, rather than derivation is very close to the root. Inducing allomorphy, inducing means generating, so inflection generates less base allomorphy, where the derivation generates more base allomorphy. So allomorphy refers whenever we are referring or using some particular morphemes to use similar kinds of words. For example, ly in slowly, and then and ly using different objectives as well. So we can use this one. And then expression of patterns it can be expressed cumulatively. Cumulatively, that means gradually. Rather, derivational is not expressed gradually. Iteration, that means repetition, so inflection cannot be repeated, so that means we cannot repeat inflectional morphemes, but we can repeat derivational morphemes, so that's why it can be iterated. So that's all about 17. You can produce the examples is there for the number 18 and differences. So if you add differences in the number 18, so you can say that examples and put goes in inflectional and slowly in derivational, that will have another differences. So the sources I said already, that is these are the sources. So I have taken information from these sources. So if you have question, definitely ask in forum. So don't be shy, just put your questions in there, and definitely I will be answering all the queries. And of course you can join there as well. You can produce the answer if you know the answer, so you can produce and help your classmates and friends as well. And thank you very much for being here, for listening and attentively. I believe you were attentive in this whole time. So I hope that will help you for developing this particular information. And this is very important in the sense that we are doing in a step-by-step process. First we work with phonology, then we are referring morphology, and next we will be coming with syntax. So definitely it is very important to maintain the serial. So that's how you will be understanding, and you will have better understanding, rather than I should say better understanding. Thank you very much.